It's been amazing. I mean, I remember I used to play a lot in Zagreb with Eddie Ramic, and he was the local kind of club guy here in Croatia who was like into the sort of non-mainstream side of dance culture, and he had a club in Zagreb which was brilliant, and we all used to go there regularly as DJs. And I remember meeting Eddie, who came down. He was living in Croatia, and he said to me about 10 years ago, he said, "Oh, I'm going to start doing these festivals in Croatia." Croatia had no club sort of culture for this sort of event then. There was no Dimensions and, you know, all Outlooks, all that stuff. But yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? And they have a very good curation, hence why I'm here sitting with you. But no, it's a good lineup, and it's one of the better festivals for sure. I don't really have a festival set. I think I should have a festival set, because I think festivals are sort of kind of your platform to sort of, you know, find the audience in a way. Because a lot of people, they just go to hear the DJs at festivals. That's the sort of culture that's definitely come up in the last sort of 10 years or so. So for me, I haven't yet done that legacy DJ thing, you know, like a lot of the DJs of my age, they're sort of just living on their history a little bit, and that's kind of my retirement. You know, I get the visuals out, do the kind of, you know, the showing off kind of, these are the records that I'm associated with. But that's also why I've been doing a lot of residencies. You know, I'm a residency guy really, and I think that the DJ culture became quite about knocking it out in 90 minutes for a big audience, and that's not really my thing. I mean, I do those events, but to get a good set and an honest set, I need to play regularly, like every week, or have residencies to break music and to kind of try stuff out. And so, yeah, so this is my, shall we call it, summer 2017 part 2 set that I played today. I'm beginning to refine it, and it should be quite good by the time I get to Dimensions. Well, I mean, my relationship with Europe is quite strong, because back in the mid-80s, I reckon 87, 88, 89, I was DJing a lot in London, playing in places like Bristol and Brighton, and they got my sound. But going up north, like I remember playing at the Hacienda, and it was like, over everyone's heads. You know, I couldn't get gigs up north, or I got gigs, but it was always really difficult for me. So what I would do is I'd play a lot in Europe. So I had residencies. When I was like 21, I was playing monthly in Vienna, in Cologne, and in Paris. So I had residencies then. I had a relationship with a lot of Europe before I had a relationship with parts of the UK. I think Europe's always had a very good relationship with music. I mean, I think France certainly, for me, particularly world music, it's much more advanced than the UK. I mean, every town in France has got a festival, so there's a lot more funding for music, or there was back in the 80s and 90s. So you'd go to all kinds of places in France, and you'd go and see Salif Keita, or you'd go and see Manu Dibango, or you'd get to see Fela Kuti. A lot of the jazz people, they survive because of France. If you'd go to Paris in 1987 and you listen to Radio Nova, you could listen to, well, I'm giving away my plot a little bit, but you're listening a little bit to the way I approach radio 30 years later. So that was a big influence for me. Japan always. Around Sapporo, up in the north of Japan. There's so many amazing places, up in the hills behind Kyoto. It's but it's not even where you do it, it's more about the aesthetic of doing a festival and how people approach music and get with music and relate to it and communicate. So as a DJ, that's why all DJs want to go to Japan, because they feel a connection with the audience. The audience is very sophisticated. So to do a festival there, especially if I can bring some Brits over and some Europeans over, which was really the idea of the Worldwide Festival, because I did a lot of festivals in various places, and it was a case of how can I get the kind of French, European crowds that I play at all the time and mix them with the kind of slightly more decadent Britishness. And if you can put those two things together, that's fire. And that's what we've hopefully continued to deliver at the I'm really into Lee Morgan, the trumpeter. So on a jazz one, I'm into him. I saw a film that just came out about his life. He got murdered by his wife in a club in 1972 in New York, and there's an amazing documentary that's just been made by a guy called Casper Collin, and it's amazing. And I think Lee Morgan was known because of a song called The Sidewinder, which was quite a sort of popcorny commercial jazz record, and in a way, because of that, I never really dug deep into his music. And he was in Dizzy Gillespie's band, Art Blakey's band, he played with Wayne Shorter, everyone. And the sound of Blue Note is Lee Morgan, so he's definitely one of them at the moment. On a soul tip, I love Marlena Shaw. Marlena Shaw is brilliant because not only is she an amazing artist who's made a ton of records, what I respect about her deeply is that she's had 8 children. And so she was a working singer and a star. She played and was signed to major record labels in America like Sony, CBS, so she was the kind of Erykah Badu of her time, but then also she did all this great jazz stuff. So she's a really good one, and she's slightly under the radar, and I think that she's got an interesting sort of body of work that I could live with for a while on a desert island. On a weirdo one, there's a producer in Switzerland called Dim Light. I love his stuff, and whenever I go back to it, it's just like so ahead of the curve in the game, so I could live with his music for a while. You know what I'm really into at the moment? I'm really into Ghanaian music. So when it comes to African music, I was really into Nigerian music for a while, and Fela Kuti and everything around that. But I love the lightness of touch of Ghana. So Ebo Taylor, people like that, Pat Thomas, but I reckon Ebo Taylor and his back catalogue would just give me that loveliness. Or someone like Ethiopian music, you know, that kind of sound as well, someone like Mulatu. But I think more, I'm going to go for Ghana, so I'll go for Ebo Taylor, his best of, if I can do that. Is that 4? Oh, Brazilian, I've got to go for Brazilian. I'm really into a guy called Luis Essa. He was a producer, he produced the Tamba Trio, and he was kind of like the Charles Stepney of Brazilian music. He kind of added orchestral stuff and a deep minor tone to it all. So anything by him, Luis Essa. The reason it's great is because, number one, they're young. They don't have the hang-ups of the older generations that felt that they had to be more sort of studious. This lot are very studious, but they also will come to Soundwave, or they'll go to Dimensions and they'll rave for a week, and they'll be into Black Madonna as much as they'll be into, you know, Theo Parrish. And why it's a really strong scene is because, like any movement, you need really strong leaders, characters, and this scene has got so many great ambassadors, whether that's Shabaka Hutchins, whether that's Rubaya Garcia, whether that's Moses Boyd. They're all really hungry, really good with the media, really good at communicating, really good at DIY, organising events, putting things together. They're working hard, and so that, it's like any scene, you know, it starts off with 20 people, and then those 20 people become 200 people, 20,000 people, and then it's a global movement. And then suddenly, you know, young people who are just getting into music and they're tired of the same old sort of, you know, popping, pumping DJ sets, they're discovering these guys and they're going, this is it. It's a bit like when I was like 15, 16 and I discovered groups like Freeze and Light of the World and High Tension and all the jazz funk groups at the time. That was my way in, and I think the groups like Yusuf Kamal are the way in for a lot of people to get to a deeper sound. I've met some incredible people in Cuba, in Brazil, in LA, in New York, in the UK, in Europe. I mean, it's just so much great talent that it would be quite difficult. I think it would be easier for me to put together a kind of brilliant jazz band in a straightforward sense. Of the living people, you know. I mean, I just think it's amazing, really, when you think that people like Wayne Shorter are still alive, and people like Herbie Hancock are still alive, and they're still kicking. And I'd say to everybody and anyone, we're just about to lose the golden generation. Even though there's all these new generations coming through, the children of, the golden generation is still alive, some of it. I did Sun Ra Orchestra at a set. Marshall Allen, 93 years old, right, on stage, right, before the set, can you get me some cognac, right? On stage, he does a 2-hour set with his band. I mean, they're the greatest band in the world. There's no question about that. So if you ask me who would be the band, I'd get the orchestra. And I'd just kind of mess about with them for a few weeks on a desert island and we'd make some music. And that would be amazing because he touches the Second World War. Marshall Allen was in the liberation of Paris. He was an American. He was in the army. He went to Paris, and he is performing now on an electronic saxophone, playing techno and free jazz together. There is no one like him in the world. So I urge anybody, honestly, watching this, make sure you see the orchestra. I got to get Erykah Badu because I think that her imprint in what's been going on in the last however many years is huge. She's the Nina Simone of this generation, and so I'd get her. You know, people are out of my league. I'd get Radiohead. You know, I'd get Tom because he gets it, and he gets what I do, and it's just the machine of Radiohead is so massive that I think it's just logistically very difficult for them to do it. But I'd love him to do a set for me in set. And that's a kind of possibility, so I'm sort of calling out here a little bit, you know, because, yeah, he's incredible, I think. Really get Questlove to do something special for me, because I have a strong connection with the Roots, and again, you know, he's a sort of Quincy Jones type of person in his influence and his position and his general overseeing way. I think he's an incredible person. So I'd sort of maybe get him to put together a super band. There's a lot of good drummers around at the moment. So I'd probably do a drum clinic in memory of Steve Reed, whose foundation I run with Queer and Hebden and Floating Points and stuff, which is a charity which supports musicians and artists in need. And you know, very much in the spirit of Steve Reed, who was a great drummer who played with Fella and Sun Ra and all kinds of people. So I'd do a drummers thing in memory of Steve Reed. This is Gilles Peterson, 30 years in the game plus, and I'm at Soundwave 2017. Always a pleasure.